Yo, what's going on, guys? Jared here. Today I have another deck profile for you. With the new Legendary Duelist set Soulburning Volcano coming out, there is a lot of fire support in this set, and we want to be able to use what is most competitively viable to us coming out of it. This set sadly is a big flop financial wise, but there are still a lot of cool cards coming out of it, and luckily they are all very budget for the people who do not have a lot of big bucks to be able to expend. For decks like this, I think this is actually a perfect choice out of the set that you can play at a competitive level, in my opinion. The other archetypes in the set are also very cheap, so that's something to keep in mind if you are a budget player looking into this from the outside. I think that this set has a lot to offer for you, possibly. This, in my opinion, is the most competitive deck out of this new set, which was going to be Salamangreat with this new support. I think that is, in my opinion, the most competitive viable because you have the most non-engine slots with the strongest end boards and the most consistency. You also get to play around cards like Droll and Lockbird, but your combo is still going to end on a Nibiru token, so keep that in mind. Make sure your non-engine is strong enough to survive past that point. Just very important to know. Salamangreat still has that issue. That's not a fixed issue. They did not get a monster negate to be able to protect yourself from that. There is some more pricey lines that you might be able to do, but I am not going to talk about that here. I'll mention it. But yeah, this is something to keep in mind that maybe if you have stuff like Baron de Fleur, you might be able to stop something like a Nibiru. So yeah, moving forward, let's jump into the deck profile. And if you enjoy these types of videos, please subscribe. I want to do other deck profiles out of this set as well for Volcanic and Battle and Boxer. But again, competitive viability, I do not think that those are going to be the most competitive, at least without the new normal spell that is a Searcher for Pyros. But I will get that to the future videos. But until then, please subscribe and enjoy. Okay, guys, so here is the Salamangreat deck. Like I said, this is the most competitively viable deck out of the new Legendary Duelist set, and because you are packed full of non-engine cards that are good for the format. As you know, I just played in the Remote Duel Regional with a non-meta deck, Evil Eye, that has the same logic of you do not have to play a lot of engine cards, and it worked out very, very well, in my opinion, of how the deck was running fundamentally. This deck, I think, is better than that deck. You just have these almost the same amount of non-engine slots, which is great. So you were able to fit in cards like 12 hand traps here, which are great going first and second because they're interruptions and don't get hit by things like Evenly Matched and Nibiru, Dark Ruler, Lightning Storm, Harpy Spider Duster, etc., etc. 3 Ash Blossom, 3 Droll, 3 Infinite Permanence, and 3 Effect Veiler. I think this covers everything well, including Labyrinth, Kashtira, Pearly, any other deck in the meta right now. I think those are like the big three. After that, everything is kind of roguey. I'm very scared of Rescue Ace. I think that deck's terrifying. So I think Imperm and Veiler are very strong against that as well. But yeah, so that is it for the hand trap portion. I think those are the best 12 in the format right now that should be at least considered for the main deck. Moving forward, for cards that are starters, we have 3 Flame Buffalo, 3 Salamangreat Fire, 3 Circle, and 1 Gazelle. Now, you might be thinking, Jared, you said that Salamangreat plays around Droll and Lockbird very well. Well, you have 9 cards here that play in the Droll and Lockbird. Ideally, in a Salamangreat turn, you are only going to be activating one of the 6 of being Buffalo and Fire. You are going to be activating one of them per turn because you shouldn't need to activate more than that per turn, in my opinion, at least. And if you do, you can get hit by Droll, but the Droll won't affect you that much. I know you have things like Balinks as well that search, so just something to keep in mind. You can chain the Buffalo to the Balinks, but the Salamangreat Fire, if you get hit with the Droll and Lockbird, you can't get to the Sanctuary. It's honestly not the biggest deal, in my opinion at least. But the Circle is wonderful because it's chainable to Droll and Lockbird, or you can do it in the draw phase to play around Droll and Lockbird, so just little things to keep in mind because the Droll and Lockbird is super popular right now, obviously, as you'd be playing in this deck. So these are all things you need to play around. And lastly, Gazelle plays around Droll and Lockbird by inherently just by setting from deck to graveyard, so you don't have to worry about it. And this entire deck can play from the graveyard. Once you have your engine going, it just flows freely, and your opponent is put on pressure to be able to kill you eventually. Or if they can't, you are able to outgrind, I would say, every deck in the format because this deck is insane with the grind game. Now for the not starter, but engine cards of the deck, I'll start with the monsters. We have 1 copy of Foxy. This is a great utility card. It can serve as a normal summon / starter. It's not the best, not optimal, but I really like this for the second effect to be able to out annoyances on your opponent's board. Being able to put this in your graveyard out in continuous spells is absolutely wonderful. Great utility piece here. 2 copies of Jack Jaguar. We don't want 1 copy to get lost or banished by anything, so I'll play the second copy. I think it's also a very strong level 4. That is kind of relevant. This build, not so much. Other builds, you can play Babushka if you want, but this is also the line where you can use Jack Jaguar and Tiger. This is the next engine piece I wanted to go over, one of the new cards. Tiger being a tuner that can level modulate, I think is super important because it can go up to a level 6 or a level 4. So you can use a rank 4 for this with the Jack Jaguar. You can make a synchro 8, 9, or 10. And this does not lock you into anything by using its effect. So you can make something like Baron to 4 if you have that in your arsenal of synchros, and that can change your end board from being a Nibiru token from being an actual end board. So just something to keep in mind if you want to build your deck differently, if you have access to different things. Also, the other card of Salamangreat Fire being a Stratos in this, I know I didn't really go over it. If it's normal or special, you search a Salamangreat monster that is super, super strong. And this is the card that locks you into fire monsters, so that's something like important to keep in mind. So if you go like Tiger and Jack Jaguar, you need to not start with fire. You need to make the Baron first and then go in the fire after if you go that route. But sometimes you can have Flame Buffalo and then do the Tiger Jaguar combo after, and then you can get it under 5 summons usually, and then yeah, you'll be good to go. Yeah, so that's it for Tiger. We also play the 1 copy of Falco. I think, again, this is a great utility card, being able to reset your Salamangreat spell and traps, and bouncing back Gazelle comes up a lot in like those grindy matchups. Super important. And yeah, so that's that. 3 copies of Spinny. I think this is the best extender of the deck. It is a 1 card comeback every time. This deck exceeds less in the rank 3s than it used to, but we still have access to things like Mirage Stalio, which are an extremely strong card. I think this card is nutso, and I want access to this every turn 1 if possible, because I think it does great things. And if you're not under Draw Lockboard, you could use Stalio to get into Salamangreat Fire and then be able to search still, even if you used your normal summon on something like Buffalo, which I think is huge amounts of advantage. So just something to keep in mind, so you don't have to go like Stalio straight into Gazelle. Now you can go, like if you start with like Foxy Spinny, you can go like straight into Stalio, get Fire, get Gazelle, then make Wolf, and then go into Gazelle, or go into Phalanx, then summon Gazelle, stuff like that. It's like the lines are more clean now rather than a little bit sloppy. Just very cool, important things to keep in mind. It makes the deck a lot more nice and neat. 1 of each trap card still. I feel like playing more than 1 of each is kind of a brick, and you have access to both of them, and they both come back from the graveyard with your Salamangreat Sunlight Wolf, so you don't really need more than that. 2 copies of Will. This is a great extender. I think this is the only card that will actually kind of allows you to play through Nibiru, besides that play I was talking about earlier. As a top deck or as a card that just sits on the field, it is so annoying to deal with as an opponent, especially if they're playing a slower type of deck. So just something to keep in mind. 1 copy of Sanctuary. This is still the brick of the deck. I like this card a lot, not as much as for Link Summoning. I actually like this a lot more for discarding it off of the Tiger. It's a free discard that you get to search for literally free. So yeah, I think it's very, very cool. You don't need to do it for Sunlight Wolf anymore, but it's still, the option's still available to you. So something to keep in mind. Moving forward from the not Salamangreat non-engine cards, only 4 of them. 3 copies of Book of Moon. This card is so good right now. This card beats Pearly single-handedly sometimes. If they go standby phase, use their Pearly Exceed monster to draw cards, then usually they'll get greedy with their trap card, flip the trap card to go into Noir to try to draw more cards. You chain Book of Moon on the Exceed monster that they're trying to rank up into Noir with, and the monster just goes face down. They don't get the Noir, they don't get the extra draws, and then you could just play freely and most likely OTK them. They also don't get back cards from the My Friend Pearly if it's on the field. If you clear the monster while it's set, which is usually a Pearly Noir. So if you clear it with something like Access Code Talker, it will not they will not get the Pearly spell and traps back to their hand. So something to keep in mind. And then 1 Call by the Grave. We still want to play around certain hand traps. Just because like Shifter is a big deal. I do not want to just immediately lose to a Shifter, but I think this card also has other really good applications in the format, being able to hit some of the Labyrinth cards while they're in the graveyard, or hitting the Dragon Link 2, the Heavenly Spears, the Hieratic, just clearing it, no problem. The card is very annoying, so if you can just Call by the Grave it, super, super good. Yeah, I just think it's a pretty strong card. Moving forward, we're going to go to the side deck real quick. I think these are just 15 side deck cards that are good in this deck specifically and for the format. 3 copies of Nib. A lot of people are playing into it. As I said, this deck can loses to Nib. Very important to keep in mind. Yeah, so we could also utilize it in this deck because we play so much non-engine. 3 copies of Book of Eclipse. This is a very good going second card or going first card against Kashtira. Helps clears a lot. Again, I'd say you can do the same thing with the Noir, with the Pearly. You just put extra copies of Book of Eclipse in and it works great. 3 copies of Cosmic, Runic, Labyrinth, any back row deck. Very good cards. I like this as the most utility. Salad's very good at playing through back row anyway, and those decks like to grind, and you can just kind of grind with them, and you'll usually end up on top. It's very important to know that if a Labyrinth player eradicates you, you do not care 90% of the time. Your deck is mostly monsters and traps, actually. So when they hit spells, the only things they're really hitting are these ones down here. You cannot count Salamangreat Circle because you're just chaining it anyway. So they are only hitting 7 cards in your entire deck. Not a big deal. That is not going to end your turn. That's not going to end the game for you. Unlike other decks, like you're playing something like Kashtira and you get Eradicator, that is just game. This deck, it is not. You are able to play through it like it is nothing. And if you hand trap them too and they really force it, a lot of the times they use all their resources to eradicate you in the first place before you show what you're playing. They'll just lose on the spot sometimes in game 1. I've seen it happen before in tournaments. Just something to keep in mind. Goes in matches is amazing and solid. Obviously, a lot of decks are very prone to this card. Things like Kashtira, for instance. Unchained is also, this is a very annoying card. They cannot go into different attributes. So all the Unchains are different. All the Kashtiras are different. So it's very, very frustrating to play around. And if you back it up with some other Salamangreat cards or hand traps, this card can end a game by itself. Dimensional Barrier. Again, you go first, you flip this against Pearly or Branded, the game's over. And there's other decks that this can apply to, like Sword Soul, any Rogue strategy. So, yeah, this card is really, really strong, of course. We want to play very good going first cards. Now, going to the extra deck, this is where things change a little bit because we are able to play and utilize a tuner monster that is an extender, that is also a Salamangreat monster in the name. So we have a lot of variety now to be able to add stuff. And I did the luxury of going through the fire monsters. There is a couple good ones. There's a level 8 warrior that is kind of an interruption. I'm not a big fan of it in this deck, personally. That's just me, because I don't see it coming up a lot. But what I am a big fan of is Black Rose Dragon, because this card can catch a lot of people off guard in this deck. They will not be expecting a Black Rose Dragon. So if you go something like Fire, and then maybe they'll stuff it with something, and then you can special summon a Tiger, that I don't think a lot of people would be expecting a Black Rose Dragon. And then especially if you have something like Book of Moon in your hand, you are able to... what's it called? You're able to protect it essentially from a Veiler or an Imperm. You can chain it on top of the Black Rose, destroy the entire board. There's also some cheeky things you can do. If I remember right, you are able to go summon Black Rose Dragon using Salamangreat monsters. And if you actually have the Gazelle in hand, you can actually go chain 1 Gazelle, chain 2 Black Rose Dragon. So the board will be destroyed first. Then the Gazelle will hit the field, use the Gazelle, send something like Spinny. Spinny come back, go into the Mirage Stalio, and then maybe Mirage Stalio for Jaguar, and then you can do a normal Salamangreat line from that point forward. I think that's a very strong play, and it can catch a lot of people off guard and just win a game outright. Now, my other little techie choice of the deck is Lavavel Salamander. This is a card that I'm using to dig for side deck cards, things like Gozen and Dimensional Barrier, or maybe hand traps like Jewel and Lockbird. I think this card has potential. I don't think this might be the best option, but I think it is a option. This is actually a newer support card for the Lavavel archetype, but it can apply here because we're playing fire monsters. So this card reads, if this card is synchro summoned, you can draw 2 cards. Then, if you have a fire monster in your hand, send 2 cards from your hand to the graveyard, including a fire monster. So just draw 2, discard 2. It's just deck thinning and getting more cards. Most likely games 2 and 3, where you would put in things like Dimensional Barrier and Gozen. I would assume that 99% of Yu-Gi-Oh players are going to side out Jewel and Lockbird because that card sucks against this deck. So this card is most likely going to be free and resolve completely without any hindrance. So you're able to draw into things like Gozen, Dimensional Barrier, your power cards essentially. That is the main part of the effect. It also has a random Book of Moon effect, which is kind of relevant. Going second, it can come up, but that's not the purpose of this card whatsoever. It is specifically to dig for cards, and then you are also able to link this off because it's still a fire monster to go into something like Sunwhite Wolf. So I think it was an interesting choice to be able to dig for cards. Again, just something to keep in mind. So you actually can use this. You can also use Flame Buffalo. And yeah, just a cool choice. You could also synchro with Flame Buffalo and Tiger to go into this. That's a draw 4. That's a lot. So, I don't know. It's kind of cool. It's just something different. I wanted to highlight. 1 copy of Mirage Stalio. Again, clearing boards and summoning from deck. That is always a plus side. It's a great starter, especially now with Fire in existence. We have 1 Heat Soul. This card is still really, really good. Some boards can just turn in the Heat Soul with non-engine. Even if you have just the bad Salamangreat cards, right? Like Spinny or Jaguar and stuff like that. A couple of these. You can still go into a Heat Soul 2 times. So you can get Heat Soul, hand traps, Book of Moons, and it's that's still not even bad, right? That's still interruptions that could just make you survive, and then you could just keep getting another draw, and then once you hit one of the main engine cards, you're golden. 1 Nightmare Phoenix. Phoenix under a Sunwhite Wolf or a Balings is still crazy. It's so hard for me to cut this card. I really think it's so necessary. 2 copies of Balings. I don't think you need 3 anymore, personally. You still can if you want to, but that's just my opinion. 3 Sunlight Wolf, this is your end game. This is how you're going to recycle everything. So I think this is a very, very, very good card, and you cannot like sacrifice this card at all, in my opinion. 1 copy of Splash Mage, 1 Transcode Talker, 1 Update Jammer. So you can still do an OTK with Transcode Talker and Update Jammer even without access code. This is still lethal. You make the Transcode Talker with the update, bring back the update under the transcode, and that's just lethal. The transcode can attack twice, and it's 28, and then the update jammer is 25, and that is like 81 damage if I remember correctly. So yeah, just there is still a purpose to playing these even without access code Talker if you're on a more budget. And then 2 copies of Raging Phoenix. This is a very interesting card. I'm not exactly sold on it. It's nice to have the search if you want to just like put bodies into it to be able to search your trap cards, because they are very, very strong. Like against like back row decks, being able to search Rage, going first and setting it, and then they like just set their back row, and you're like, oh, okay, set. You can just like pop 4, like that's crazy. So I think that's a very nice option to have in the deck. But there are other options as well, other Link 4s, other Cyberse Link 4s, the other Salamangreat Link 4. You have a lot of options with Salamangreat. The extra deck is so like there's so many cards you can play. There's a new Salamangreat Synchro as well. I just don't think it's good enough right now. I really want to play that card. I think it's so cool, but just not it right now. But yeah, that is pretty much it for the Salamangreat deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, this is a budget option. This is actually very nice at how cheap this deck is coming out. And I think a lot of people can afford it and enjoy it and win a lot of games with it because of how much non-engine you can put in here. So depending on your local tournament or your local friend group that you are playing with, you are able to modify things like the Veilers, Imperm, Book of Moon, Call by Joel, Ash into whatever your local meta is, right? So yeah, overall, I hope you guys enjoyed the deck profile. Please subscribe if you did, and let me know what other decks you want me to cover on here. I would greatly appreciate it. And yeah, I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.